All righty. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans to add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all-powerful, all-wise. And even if I live to be 1,000, it still would not be enough to thank God for his many blessings. I praise no other in my good fortune, and I confide in no other in my time of need. He is one, and he is our provider. So today we want to talk about the history of racism in boxing and the impact of the Mayweather and Conor McGregor fight. It's a lot of tension, a lot of racial tension going on with this fight, but I'm here to tell you that it's a history of racism and racial tension behind boxing going back a long time. This just didn't start with this. So just give me a few minutes. I want to explain that to you, and I'll bring it up to present day, and I try not to be long. And definitely after this is over, please share this with others who you think can benefit for this information. If you go back to the late 1700s in the state of Virginia, it was a man by the name of Tommy Molineaux. Tommy Molineaux, Tommy and Molineaux, Molineaux. Tommy Molineaux and his father, they were slaves on a plantation in Virginia going towards the 1700s into the 1800s. Tommy Molineaux, who was the son, was very good with his hands, and a lot of times on a slave plantation, slaves didn't have nothing else to do, so they would what they call slap box. But Tommy Molineaux was trained by his father because his father was into boxing, but it wasn't no boxing with gloves. This is what you call bare knuckle fist fighting. Bare knuckles, no 4-ounce and 10-ounce gloves like McGregor and Mayweather are arguing over which ounce gloves they're going to use. Bare knuckle fist fighting. So they were entertaining the slave masters, and what the slave masters did, because they were always looking for ways to exploit the slaves, they had fights going amongst the slaves on the plantation in Virginia, and Tommy Molineaux was just dusting people off left and right. So his slave master came up with an idea. He said, this nigger can make me more money. So he started contacting other slave masters in the Virginia area and was inviting their slaves there to fight Tommy Molineaux. Tommy Molineaux, coached by his father, was just dusting people off left and right, bare knuckle fist fighting, making his slave master a huge amount of money by entertainment in these fights. So Tommy Molineaux and his father approached the slave master and said, look, we're making you all this money. I'm putting my safety on the line. If we call another fight and I make you the amount of money that you bet on, if I win, you need to give us our freedom. And the slave master surprisingly agreed to it, said, yeah, if we do these next couple of fights and you win and I win the amount of money that I want, I'll set you and your father free. So they had the big event. This is in the 1700s. Of course, Tommy Molineaux in a bare knuckle fist fight dusted off the all the competition, and the slave master set Tommy Molineaux and his father free. They moved to England, up through Canada and England, because at that time they were a little more lenient on black people in England than they was here in America. So they moved there. So he continued with his career in bare knuckle fist fighting, and they actually had a federation of boxing there. And Tommy Molineaux dusted off a couple people, but the key to what I want to tell you right now is it was a man there. I think his name was Joshua Cribbs, or his name was Tommy Cribbs, but his last name was definitely Cribbs. He was the world heavyweight champion in England. And Tommy Molineaux started becoming known because he was just dusting people off left and right. And finally, he convinced the Boxing Federation there in England to give him a title fight with this Cribbs. We're going to call him Mr. Cribbs, 'cause I have to confirm his first name. A lot of times when I'm doing these lectures, I'm doing them off at the top of my head because if something comes to my mind, the Most High puts something on me, I just come with it. I don't have a bunch of notes. But anyway, Mr. Cribbs was the world heavyweight champion. He was undefeated. So they touted this is the fight of the century. This is in 1810 now. 1810, the fight of the century. People had made huge bets and said Tommy Molineaux wouldn't even make it 10 rounds. Because back then it wasn't no 12 and 15 rounds. The fights was to the death. In this fight, I'm going to tell you what happened, went 35 rounds. Can you imagine that? 35 rounds of bare knuckle fist fighting. So everyone betted that Mr. Cribbs was going to dust off Tommy Molineaux in less than 10 rounds. Well, that didn't happen, but I'm going to show you how demonic these people are. In the 19th round, Tommy Molineaux about had Mr. Cribbs done. He was giving him the business. He was almost knocked out on his feet. And then in the 19th round, they did a legal move, which they kind of clutched and clenched each other, which is legal to keep each other from hitting each other. They clenched each other, which is legal. Do you know? Follow me. Listen to me on this. Do you know as they clenched each other, which is a legal move, do you know 30 to 40 white people bum rushed the ring and started beating up Tommy Molineaux? This is recorded history. I'm going to repeat it. In the 19th round, when Tommy Molineaux had this demon about beating, knocked out on his feet, 30 to 40 people bum rushed the ring, said Tommy Molineaux did an illegal move, which he didn't, said he was cheating, bum rushed the ring, and beat up Tommy Molineaux and actually broke his hand. While all this went on, Mr. Cribbs went to his corner and started recuperating. They was getting him all back together because he was getting the daylights beat out of him. This melee went on for about 5 to 10 minutes, and Tommy Molineaux's hand got broke in the melee with 20, 30 people beating up on him. After they cleared the ring, you would think a righteous person would say, well, this can't go on. Take a wild guess what happened. While he's resting and they cleared the ring, they said, fight back on. Tommy Molineaux was about done. He just had 30, 40 people fighting him, and he was just fighting for 19 rounds. No matter whether you're winning or not, if you got 19 rounds of someone hitting you with their bare knuckles, that's going to take something out of you. They said fight back on. By the 34th round, Tommy Molineaux couldn't make it anymore, and in the 35th round, Mr. Cribbs ended up beating Tommy Molineaux, cheated him out of the World Heavyweight Championship, cheated him out of being the first black champion of anything in this hemisphere. So the next person I'm about to tell you about, Jack Johnson, who is the first black heavyweight champion in boxing, technically that's not true. Tommy Molineaux won that fight, and he couldn't finish, and then he turned to alcoholism after the fight because he was so distraught because that was his dream and he fought so hard to get there, and they stripped it from him like they always do. You people don't want us to have nothing. They stripped him. He became addicted to alcohol. He did get a rematch, but he was half drunk when he had the rematch. And in the 10th round and in the second fight with this Mr. Cribbs, Tommy Molineaux lost the fight. And it was a lot of racial tension. So racial tension just ain't start with Floyd Mayweather and this McGregor fellow. So look that name up, Tommy Molineaux, Molineaux, and it will tell you. And I always bring my resources. It's right in this book, $40 Million Slaves. It'll tell you about how Tommy Molineaux was cheated by this Mr. Cribbs in England in 1810, the fight of the century. Just 40, 50 years later, which most people know,